The Lost Cryptids Conservatory, where we will shatter your reality to bring you closer to the truth.
All right, guys, welcome back to another live show. We have a awesome guest today. I'm going to bring him on right now. We're going to be talking about a couple of different interesting things. So my guest is Ramos, the one of the creators of the Cryptidnals, a comic book series with awesome graphics, horror, gory details, and awesome action that goes along with it. So welcome, Ray. How's it going?
Awesome to be back on, Blake. It's been about a year, man. It was totally cool last time I was here, and I'm so happy that you had us back, or had me back rather. It's been interesting. It's been really cool. We put out the book earlier this year. We fulfilled. We had an Indiegogo, and we fulfilled it earlier this year. And so far, we've had nothing but really good reviews for it. And thrilled to share that story with you, and to share a little more of my paranormal experiences myself that I've had.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, where do you want to begin? I mean, this is kind of your show, so where do you want to
Well,
go?
thank you for that. First of all, I just want to thank everybody that listened to me last time when I was on here, and they bought the book, or they backed the book, the campaign for the book. We couldn't have done it without you guys. We did really well. I think we did like over 17K. When we finally stopped the campaign, and we fulfilled earlier this year. So we tried to do a really quick turnaround on it, because a lot of Indiegogo campaigns, a lot of crowdfunding campaigns, they seem to kind of lag, and people don't get their books for years sometimes. We wanted to avoid that.
Yeah.
And my crew, 656 Comics, we're all about the product that we have. We're really serious about being as professional as possible. And when we say we're going to do something, we have to go through with it, because you guys are the ones that are making it possible for us to do what we love, which is comics. And well, I guess graphic novels in this case, because the book was pretty thick. It was like 148 pages. So I mean, we want to thank you guys for that, and also to announce that we are going to do a second chance for everybody that missed out the first time around, and that's going to be on September 16th, which is kind of a special day over here. Well, more in Mexico. It's el 16 de septiembre, and that's when I think Mexico announced their independence. Yes, I'm looking at my crew because they're in the back, like taking care of business with some sandwiches over there. But it was in Mexico. It's a very big holiday, because they announced their freedom from the French. Was the French? Spanish? Which one was the French? Was that another one? Oh, Cinco de Mayo. That's the French. Sorry. Drinko de Mayo was the French. September 16th was the Spanish, that they announced their freedom from the Spanish, their Declaration of Independence, sort of. So we're gonna kick off the Cryptidnal Second Chance on September 16th. I believe it falls on a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, and go from there. Is it a Friday? Oh, sorry, they're correcting me over here. So it's a Friday, and we're gonna go from there. I did drop the link in the chat. I don't know if you want to share it. You can sign up
right now.
early. You can sign up early for it, and you'll get an announcement, an email when we go live for the Kickstarter. For the first time ever, we're offering a Kickstarter campaign as well, since we did so well in Indiegogo. So far, we've fulfilled
Right.
3 books through Indiegogo, and we just finished up another one. So we're going to be fulfilling that one soon and starting up the Cryptidnals second chance for Indiegogo and also for Kickstarter. So be on the lookout for that, because we're going to have some more goodies, some more one of a kind items. We're announcing also for the first time ever, we're going to have a glow in the dark cover for the new edition that's going to Kickstarter. We want to call it like the second edition, but it's going to have the same cover that you got for the first Cryptidnals, but it's going to glow in the dark. I think the letters on top are going to glow in the dark, so we're very excited about that also.
Heck yeah, man. So links in the description. You guys can sign up and stuff and get ready, because you guys are doing amazing work. We showed a lot of images and stuff last time. You had the whole crew on, actually, the first time.
Yeah, they're here,
time.
but they're just visiting. They're just visiting right now.
If you guys I like comic books. I like Marvel and all that before they made movies. And you guys doing really good stuff, and I love the work. It's really good art, and it's just amazing product full through. So yeah, everyone support these guys. They're doing really good work, and you even have some paranormal stuff that has happened to you recently.
Yes, some really crazy stuff has been going on, man. And it's the Cryptidnals all began because of my paranormal experiences growing up. I had a lot of stuff happening. I think we talked about it last time I was on here, but really quick to recap.
Yeah, summarize it.
When I was a kid, I saw or experienced La Llorona phenomenon. La Llorona, for all of you that don't know, is the weeping woman that haunts rivers and any sort of waterway, kind of like a banshee. But in Mexico, she seems to be more iconic. And there was a movie that came out a few years ago, I think, about La Llorona also. And they played her off as this woman that drowned her children, and she was murderous and all this other stuff. But when I was a kid, I experienced what I thought was La Llorona. And I go to find out later down the road, because I've been doing some more research into the background, into stuff that happened to me growing up. And when I experienced it, I was with my sister and my brother-in-law, that they were living out in the boonies at that time of El Paso. And we're right up against Mexico. And the river Rio Grande cuts right through El Paso and Mexico. It's kind of like the dividing line. So there's always been this connection with La Llorona and the Rio Grande. And she appears here from time to time if you're really close to waterways and stuff like that. People have seen her, people have heard her. And when I experienced her, I heard her at my sister's house. After that happened, I started asking questions as to what was going on. But it took me a very, very long time to find out a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. I was a very naive kid. I didn't know what was happening. So it turns out that my sister and my brother-in-law were into some stuff. They were into the occult. They were practicing some sort of rites or rituals. And in the area that they lived in, it was very, very popular. And it was in the 80s too. So the whole satanic panic was going on. But it was really popular for witches to get together, and also for Satanists to get together and perform rituals out in these areas, because no one was around. The cops wouldn't go. There was very loosely populated and stuff like that. So I went to find out later on that my sister had been into some stuff. I'm not exactly sure what it was, because she wouldn't give me details, but whatever happened there seemed to attach itself and follow me back home. And growing up at my house, my parents were very, very negative towards each other. These were people that should have not stayed together from a very long time ago, but they wanted to do it, I guess, for the kids or whatever. But it turns out that my mom was into some stuff that I was not aware of. And I started when I started doing the investigation and started researching everything for the Cryptidnals. I started looking into the background as far as my personal history, my family, and things started coming into focus as far as stuff that I had experienced, but I guess kind of just brushed off. And a lot of stuff happened at my house. I would see a lot of paranormal activity, shadow people. That was a big thing. They were all over the place, and I attributed it to my parents just being very negative and drawing all this negative energy to the house. And it's funny because a lot of my friends wouldn't believe me, and then they'd go to the house at night and they would see them and they'd freak out and they'd be like, "No, you know what? I never want to come back here again." I would
That's it.
see,
One and done.
yeah, exactly. They were like, I'm done with you. I don't want anything to do with that." There was a lot of other entities that I saw there. I saw the Hat Man once.
Really?
I saw a bunch of shadow people, and there was this other thing that I saw, and this is really crazy. It was like when you stand, or when you look at somebody stand in front of a blackboard and you see the halo around them. I don't know if you've ever seen that or experienced that.
Not that I can
Like
remember, but
well, if you stand like in front of something that's like black or opaque or anything like that, and if you really concentrate, you can see like a halo around them, or like an aura, kind of an aura. I want to call it that, but it's like a white kind of outline around the person. Next time, if you get a chance, if you see like a blackboard, see if you can see it. But I saw this entity that was a shadow person, but it was like white. It was like a ghost, I guess you could say. But the thing would walk around the house, and it wouldn't appear and then disappear. It would just like appear and make its presence known and like walk through a wall. And we're just like, I would experience this growing up, and I was like, what the hell? And I remember one time I was about 15 years old, and the Llorona experience happened to me when I was about 12. So around 15, I remember my mom one night was yelling at the top of her lungs in the other room, and I went out to see what was going on, and she was yelling at this thing in the corner of the room, and I saw it with my own eyes, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" And it looked like a shadow person, but it was white, like a white shadow person. If that makes any sense, I don't know. And she was yelling at it, and she was yelling at it in Spanish. My parents are from Mexico, and she was yelling in Spanish, cursing it out, and then telling it, and it sounds worse in Spanish, right? Salte de mi casa si eres mal, o quédate si eres buena, which translated means if you're good, stay. If you're evil, get the hell out of my house, right? So this thing did this bizarre. It was, and I witnessed this with my eyes, and I still to this day I still can't believe what I saw. But the thing kind of like, because we had wood paneling, that was like a big thing in the 80s, right? Everybody had wood paneling in their homes, and I saw this thing kind of like recede into the paneling, and the shapes that were in the paneling, it kind of became the shape, and that one section of the paneling stayed brighter than the rest of the paneling around it, and up until the day that they tore the paneling down, you could still see the outline of this shape. And it looked like it had a head, and it looked like it had shoulders, but that was it, and you could see it. And for a very long time, I kind of like just said like, you know what, whatever. I was dreaming. I saw something else. But up until a few years ago, when my mother was still living at that house, and I went to visit her before they tore the paneling down, I could see it there. It was still there.
wow.
And I had never really like come to terms with what I experienced. I guess I kind of blocked it out when I was growing up, but it was still there. And it seemed like the whole house was always in this flux. It seemed like it was always like there's always something happening, especially at night. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I got a couple questions when you're ready.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard the TV. I thought it was an echo, but I guess it was just me. So yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of that going on. A lot of like sightings outside in the backyard. You would see these things congregate. I call it congregate because they were walking around in the backyard, like shadow people walking around. I swear one time it looked like it was a swarm. Have you ever seen sharks, how they swarm?
Mm-hmm.
It looked like that. And they were like flying, and they were just hovering around the backyard like a vortex kind of thing. And that's where I got the idea that perhaps my house was some sort of vortex or a portal or something to draw all this negativity. Because I'm telling you, growing up in that house was a nightmare. My parents were, pardon my French, but they were a-holes to each other, like big time. They should not have been together, and it kind of like made the whole house suffer. My brother and my sister had already moved away a very long time ago, so I was the only one in the house. and I was just witness to all the stuff that they would do to each other, just being very angry and mean to each other. So that was that. But I'll get into the rest in a second. You said that there was some questions.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered with that portal stung and stuff, but did you research anything like maybe historically that area had hauntings, or maybe the house before you guys moved in, if the previous owners or anything like that?
My parents moved into that house when it had barely been constructed, and this was in the 60s.
Okay, so.
As far as I know, that whole area was it's like I could literally I could throw a rock and I could probably hit the river. That's how close we were to the border of Mexico and El Paso. And I remember being a kid, my parents would actually drive over the little like hill that separated Mexico from America and go and hang out at the river, and people from the other side of the river would come over and hang out on their side, and sometimes they'd swim across, and they would like hang out. So that was before there was a wall, before there was like a moat and like a whole obstacle course that's there now. But that's how close we were. So that whole area, I think, has something, or something happened there. Researching the whole area, it was just a lot of river, I guess, river bed or shore, whatever you want to call it. In 1975, when I was born, that's an age gauge right there, right? There was a flood in that whole area. The river broke because there was so much rain, and it flooded the whole neighborhood. My parents had been living there for about 10 years, as far as I know. They had moved in like in 65. And the National Guard had to be called in to evacuate people. And my mom was pregnant with me. I remember that because she always told me that story, that she didn't want to leave the house because the house was up further than the street level, because they had like a driveway up into the house, and she didn't want to leave the house because she didn't think the water was going to rise all the way to the top. And sure enough, it didn't. But the National Guard showed up and they evacuated everybody anyway. So she had to be put pregnant. Like, she was already like 8 months pregnant with me, and she had to be put in a canoe or whatever and like taken out of the area. But because of that, they dug up a lot of the section that would flood, and it was called the Little Woods. And the Little Woods that was in the area had a lot of little like trees and old trees also. So I don't know if that might have been something to do with it, because I know that before all that had happened, it was just farmland, and that little copse of trees had been there for a very, very long time until it flooded. And once it flooded, that's when they took everything out. They cut all the trees down, and they made like a ditch, like a divot in the land, I guess you could say. And that's where all the flood water would go to afterwards, so it wouldn't flood into the neighborhood. So I don't know if maybe that had something to do with it, whatever they disturbed by getting rid of that woods, the copse of woods that they had there, because it had been here for so long. So know. Yeah, it's a possibility as well.
Yeah. Thanks for answering that. So I continue on. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you and stuff. So you had
no problem. So let's see, where can I go? When I was growing up, because a lot of stuff has come to light in recent, like since the last time I talked to you, a lot of stuff has come to light, and it's crazy because all this information has been coming in from sources that I never expected, and a lot of it is very like bizarre for me to be caught up in it. I guess it's just playing out really weird. A few months ago, I started working at a pawn shop again, and you get characters that come into the pawn shop all the time. Like, crazy stuff happens at a pawn shop, and I had already worked previously at another pawn shop, and I wanted to go back, so I went back, started working there a few months ago. And I think 2 months ago, more or less, or a month and a half ago, I was there, and this man comes in, and he had a cap on. It said Vietnam vet. He had all the designation and everything of where he had been, I guess. And I had never met him ever in my life. He comes in, and we ask for their IDs whenever someone comes into the store. So I take his ID, and he had some pawns that he needed to pay on, whatever. And I'm looking at his ID, and I see the address on it, and it's the street behind the street that I lived on. So I don't want to dox anyone or anything like that. But for example, my street was Banana Street, and he lived on Apple Street that was right behind me. And I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, you live at 232 Banana Apple Street, and I'm like, I lived at 233 Banana Street. And he's like, oh really? I know where that house is. You're Ramos's, aren't you? And I'm like, what? And he starts going off, like starts telling me all this stuff. He's like, yeah, my house is kind of catty corner to your house. Our fences touch, like in the corner. And I remember seeing your dad in the backyard a few times last week. And also, I saw the mothership. I'm like, what? What do you mean the mothership? He's like, yeah, I saw the mothership. And he went on to draw what he saw. And in the front of my parents' house, there was pine trees. There was very tall pine trees. They were above the house. It was a one-story house, but still, they were pretty tall. I'd say at least maybe 20, 25 feet tall. That's how tall the pine trees were. And he goes on to say that about a month before I had seen him in the store, he saw what he described, or what he drew as a triangular shaped object hovering right above my house where the pine trees were. And he's like, yeah, right where the pine trees were. Because I remember you used to have three, but now you only have two because one of them had died and it had gotten removed. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it's interesting that I saw that. I saw that in 2019. I saw that same object over your house, but it didn't have flashing lights like it did this time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, in 2019, I saw that hovering your house in April of 2019. He was very exact with the dates. And I'm like, in 2019? He's like, yeah. And you saw my dad last week? He's like, yeah. So Blake, in 2019, my sister passed away, and my mom got ill, so she was taken out of the home. She was put into like a nursing home, and the house was alone. Nobody was living there. My dad passed away in 2013. No, well, I'm sorry, 2012, right? In 2012, my dad had passed away. And this gentleman said that he had seen my dad like a month before. Now it gets even crazier than that. So I have another friend. I have a friend that I kind of grew up with. I used to be in a poetry slam team, and she was part of my team as well. And she's an empath. She's very empathic, and she has the ability to see ghosts, but she doesn't really talk about it much. It kind of embarrasses her. And in 2019, when my sister passed away and my mom was taken out of the home, in April of 2019 is when that happened. Towards the end of April, my friend called me, and she never calls me for anything, and it was very late at night. And she called me, and she's like, hey, I need to talk to you real quick, and I'm sorry that I'm just calling you out of the blue, but I got to talk to you about this, and it's very important. I don't want you to think anything weird about me. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I mean, what's going on? She's like, I saw your dad. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I saw your dad walking around your house. Her grandparents live right next door to my old house, and she still goes and visits her grandmother. And she goes on to say, yeah, I saw your dad walking around the house the way he used to, because she knew that my dad had passed away. And my uncle saw him too. She said that her uncle had seen my dad also walking around outside the house, or like, doing, I guess, rounds or something. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah. And he looked very upset. When my mom got taken out of the home, the house was kind of like left in disrepair. So it looked really bad outside. She hadn't been like mowing the lawn or doing anything like that. So there was weeds growing everywhere, and everything was kind of like disheveled. And she said that she thought that my dad might be upset because of the condition of the house, and that's why he was there. And then flash forward to this year, last month, and this gentleman walks into the store and tells me, yeah, I saw your dad last week walking around outside the house. I've also seen other people, but I can't make them out. They're just walking around outside the house.
Wow,
and I'm like, what the hell?
Man. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm right now, and I go visit the house because it's not very far from where I live right now. And I just go check on it, and sure enough, the house is looks like crap. You know, the weeds and everything, and you know, the way that things are right now, I can't get into the house to take care of it, to take care of what I need to take care of. But I'm working on that. But still, and I think that's why he's back. I think that's why my father's back again. Like, because he was always very proud. He was always, you know, cleaning outside, like, you know, mowing the lawn, doing stuff like
The
that,
old
fixing
school
repairs.
mentality of you got to have that grass mowed, looking good, and all the sticks picked up, and make it shine.
Exactly. Exactly. So you know where I'm coming from when it comes to that, and
Oh
I think
yeah.
he's pissed off. He's upset. So yeah, that's been the newest occurrences, and then some other stuff happened also. And this one was kind of like, oh crap, what the hell were my parents, or rather my mother, into? So I don't know if there's any more questions. I can't see what's going on, but
Oh, nothing in chat so far, but
nothing.
I mean, man, it's just so much. I mean, just what is going on at the house, and then with your dad and stuff. I mean, it's really pretty abnormal for usually ghosts and apparitions to be sighted during the daytime outside. I mean, it's not like the guy said he looked like a ghost. He said it was your dad, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's some pretty intense stuff. It's
Like
not
even
like,
talking about it right now, it's like giving me kind of like, I don't know, like chills a little bit.
yeah. I don't know. He said there was other people, but he couldn't tell what they looked like, right? Does that
Hmm.
mean that they were more ghostly figure? Because I mean, if you're just looking outside, he can clearly see your dad, but I don't know.
I'm not sure what it was. And then I went on and I told the gentleman, like, yeah, my dad passed away in 2012, so I don't know who you saw out there. And he's like, I know who your dad is, because you know, we've lived on that street, you know, most of our lives, so I know what he looks like, and I saw him, and he was there. And I was kind of like, man, like, what did you see, or who was that, or what's going on? And once again, it started like turning the wheels. Like, what was my mom doing? Because it turns out that she was into some stuff. Because I started going over a lot of past occurrences, especially like with my sister telling me, you know, that she was into some stuff, me finding out all the stuff she was into. And so my mother, um, she has dementia now, so I can't really ask her about this stuff because she doesn't know what's going on. But when I was a kid, I remember one day, and I was about 17, more or less. I was 17. And I remember one day my mom was in the back room and she called me into the room. She's like, come here, I need you to do something for me. So I went into the back room, and there was a window uh, looking out into the backyard in the back room. She's like, there's a bag over there in the corner and it's blue. I need you to go get the bag. Don't look inside of it. I need you to get a can, put it inside the can, take it to wherever there's running water, like maybe a canal or a river or the river or something, burn it, and then toss whatever burns into the water. Don't look at the bag. And I'm 17, right? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. But she's like, take the car. And that's the only thing that stuck in my head. Like, oh shit, I get to use the car, right? I'm 17, I get to use the car. So sure enough,
Yeah. Heck
I
yeah.
went into the backyard and I got the bag. And stupid me, I'm like, what's in it? So I looked in the bag. Inside the bag, Blake, was a full size raven. And it had red string, a red ribbon around its neck. And it had a little tongue hanging out. And it looked like it had been strangled. And I'm like, what the hell? But at that point in time, I really didn't put much thought into it. So I took the bag, I put it in a can. It was like a coffee can. I stuffed it in there, I put it in the back of the car, and I started driving. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? So I went to a dumpster, and I just threw it in the dumpster. Right? Done.
Shit,
She
yeah,
she'll
man, so I would've
she'll
done
never
that.
know. Yeah, she'll never know. So stupid me, right? So once again, working at the pawn shop, one of my fellow coworkers, he's a santero. He worships la Santa Muerte. I don't know if you've heard about that or what's going on with that, but it's
Is
become
it
very popular.
I'm
I'm
not
sorry.
quite sure. I mean, there's a few things, so I don't want to get mixed up.
No. I mean, that's we're here to learn, right? We're here to impart
Right,
knowledge on
exactly.
each other.
Exactly.
Um, So La Santa Muerte has become very popular in the past few years. A lot of narcos, which are like involved in the drug cartel, they worship death because they say that death is like the only thing that's assured. La Santa
Mhm.
Muerte comes from Santeria, and it's been kind of, I don't know,
Okay.
I don't want to say it's been twisted because these are people's religions, and I don't want to kind of say like, oh, that's wrong or
Kind of
anything
like
like
two
that.
different
Everybody. Mhm.
diversions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So it kind of went in a different direction. And so the guy that I was working with, he worshipped La Santa Muerte, and he's a like a brujo curandero, kind of like a shaman, so to speak, right?
Okay.
And I was talking to him off and on, and we started getting like to know each other because I had just started the job, and he started opening up to me about the stuff that he was into, and it turns out he had an altar to La Santa Muerte, and he showed me pictures and all this other stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. And one day out of the blue, I'm just like there, and I ask him like, hey man, do you know like much about like black magic and santeria and all that other stuff? He's like, I know a bit. I know some stuff. Like, what are you talking about? And I told him that story about the raven. And he's like, I don't know how to tell you this, man, but you effed up. And I'm like, what? What do you what do you mean? He tells me like what you just described to me, I've heard of before. Whenever something like that happens, and he told me like straight out, he's like, is your mom still alive? And I'm like, yeah, my mom's still alive. She's in a nursing home. He's like, oh, okay. Growing up, did you like experience a lot of stuff that dealt with your mother, like doing kind of weird things? And I'm like, yeah, I remember like there was a lot of weird stuff that she was into. And I remember one time she took me to a santera because I remember her being all dressed in white, and they did the palm, and they blew smoke in my face from a cigar, and she was drinking like tequila and stuff like that. And he's like, okay. So what happened is that somewhere along the line, your mother must have pissed someone off, and what they were trying to do is kill her. They were trying to destroy a witch, in other words. And what they sent to the house, that is a form of is putting a curse on somebody so that they fall ill and eventually perish, right? And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. And by you taking it and throwing it away, you didn't complete it or you didn't get rid of it. Whatever was sent to your mother, it just hovered there. It just stayed there. You didn't do what you're supposed to do, like your mother told you. She was right. You should have done exactly what she said, and you didn't. And I'm like, what? So now I'm like, oh my god, man! Like, I don't know what to do now. I'm like, I should have paid more attention. Am I cursed? Is this still like hanging around? And it was just bizarre. It's just strange.
Yeah, man. That's there's a lot of stuff that only the people who really get into that stuff really know and truly know that, man. Because I mean, I've heard stories about that too of the sending stuff and curses, and it's some pretty powerful stuff that they everyone believes in. There's a reason why a lot of religions have people that believe them, because sometimes there's things that open people's eyes. Man, I don't know what to think, man. It's just it's intense,
And
man.
and
It reminds
when
me
I
of some
was
like old world stuff,
yeah,
sending
yeah,
curses to houses and homes, and
and
it's
that's what I'm
weird.
trying to figure out. Like, what was she into? What was she doing? Because I didn't pay attention to her growing up. I didn't pay attention to anything that was going on in my house because it was just so negative and so like rotten to me. The less time I spent at home, the better for me, right? So it was there was a point in time where I was just going home and sleeping and then leaving as soon as I possibly could when I woke up because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be
Right.
around any of that. Of my parents just constantly at each other's throats, and I think I missed out on a lot of stuff that was happening behind the scenes. And now I'm like starting to pick up the pieces and put things together, and it's kind of scary, man. It's like it's frightening.
Yeah, it would be, man. I don't even know what I would think, and just I don't know, man. But she never like introduced you to that religion, or any other your family members. It was just kind of kept secret. I mean, do you have
It
any
I
idea maybe why, or
I don't know if it was a combination of whatever my sister was into, what I experienced at her house with La Llorona, maybe latched on and I brought it home. and maybe she started experiencing that or something. My mother started experiencing that because I remember there was a lot of stuff going on at the house. I remember that the priest came at least like 5 times from the time that I was in middle school to the time I graduated from high school to bless the house. So,
Wow.
and the thing is that it was during the phase in our lives when you're still trying to like rebel and you're like, religion, who needs that? So whenever the priest would come over, I was kind of like, what's this guy doing here? I was very negative towards the idea. So I wasn't really paying attention to what he was doing. I just remember one time my parents called me into the living room, and my dad tried. I'll give him that. My dad tried his hardest to try and keep it all together. He really did love my mother. My mother was, on the other hand, was the type of person that was very hard to love, and I remember her being very cold growing up. But I remember my dad um, calling me into the living room, and we're all holding hands with the priest, and he's like, saying a prayer and trying to bless the home and this and that. And the only thing I could think of during that time was like, this is fucking stupid. Like, why am I here? I got stuff to do. I don't want to be here. So even I was adding to the negativity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, without realizing this stuff. I mean, as a kids and teenagers, you're kind of ignorant about this stuff. It's like this, whatever. But when you grow up, you get a little wiser, get with experience, and you look back, and it's like, wow, everyone's like that. Wish I would have paid attention a little bit more here and there, but sometimes when you discover things, it's at the certain time and the right time, though, too. So.
And that's the thing now, and with all the information that I've been getting as of late, and all the realizations or revelations, if you want to call them that I've been, coming to, I'm like, what do I do with this information? How can I fix what I essentially blame myself for some of it, because even though I was ignorant, I should have like paid a little bit closer attention. So in a way, I'm like, how do I fix this? What can I do in order to fix this? But it's just one of those things that I guess as time goes on, we'll figure out. And also some of it has to deal with the stuff that I was into growing up also, because I don't know if you're familiar with like Carlos Castañeda and stuff like that. But I was into that also, growing up, the path, as they call it, learning all this esoteric stuff. And because of that, I also experienced a lot of other stuff too.
A lot of people think some of those esoteric different religions or philosophies or paths and stuff, could brings and opens a lot of this spiritual doorways. People say, that's why, it's every religion. You can go to the remote parts of Africa and they believe in spirits. They believe in the power of possession. They believe in a lot of stuff that a lot of religions talk about, and it's the spiritual world. And there's so much we don't know. And I think ancient times we knew a little bit more and how to deal with this certain things. Certainly now we, in the Western world, we don't know how to deal with it besides call a Catholic priest, right? So honestly, but in all other religions and cultures, they take it pretty seriously and stuff. And even the Bible,
that's something
talks about
that
spiritual warfare and stuff. So
yes,
I believe
exactly.
there's something going on, and it does affect people. There's negative spirits, there's good spirits, all sorts of things. So
yeah, and I believe in it, and I feel that the negativity is there, and of course the positivity is there. It just depends which path you want to follow, and sometimes they cross. I remember another time growing up. Well, after I had turned 18, I was about I guess 20 more or less. I had a lot of friends, and we were into the whole Carlos Castañeda thing, the spiritualism, all this stuff. And I remember there was a time when we were really heavily into it, and we would go out into the desert, because the desert's very easily accessible to us. Like, we'll drive 10 minutes outside of El Paso in each direction, and the desert's there. It's just right there. And we were going out there, and we're having fires, and trying to open up our third eye and doing all this stuff. And at one point in time, there was this one guy that I knew that I really didn't like. I really disliked him, and he was also a poet, because a lot of growing up, I was really into poetry, into the poetry scene, poetry reading, stuff like that. And he also considered himself a poet, but I always thought him like as my not at my level. He was always lower than me, and every time I saw him, I would make fun of him. I was a kid. I was being a prick, and I didn't know his background. I didn't know who he was, and this one time we were there. I was there, like talking to my girlfriend at the time, and she was in high school. I went to go visit her, and he was there. He apparently was a tutor there, and it kind of like rubbed me the wrong way that he was there, and this girl that I was seeing at the time was there too. So I kind of took it upon myself to let him know, kind of like mark my territory kind of thing, and say a few words to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't like that. He, of course, why would you like anyone talking crap to you? And I was going to community college, and every once in a while I would see him there too, because he was going to community college as well. And one time I was walking by, and every time I'd see the guy, he irked me, and I had to say something to him. I don't know why, young, stupid, whatever. I had to talk shit to him, in other words. And one time I remember walking by, and I made fun of him in front of some of his friends, and he looked right at me, and he gave me this look, and I will never forget that look that he gave me. It was like, yeah, you messed up. You shouldn't have done that kind of look, but he didn't say anything to me. So I was like, whatever. It was the weekend. It was a Friday night. And I was hanging out with my other group of friends, the ones that were into the Castañeda stuff, into the spiritualism. And we decided to go out into the desert. We went out to the desert, and we're hanging out. We're talking about everything that we were learning as far as the path is concerned, as far as what Castañeda's teachings and stuff like that. And we were in a section of the desert where it hadn't been, I guess, how would you say it? Like, people hadn't moved in to try and construct stuff there and make like buildings or shopping centers or whatever. It was really far out. Yeah. But the freeway or the road was nearby to a point, like maybe it was like maybe 5 minutes away from where we're at, driving to get to the main road where there was cars. There was constantly cars passing. And it was in East El Paso. And we were hanging around outside the car, and we started hearing things. We started hearing like barking and dogs like moving around. And the thing is that we're in the middle of the desert. There shouldn't be any dogs out there unless they're feral. But even then, it's a very rare thing. And we started hearing all this commotion, these animals moving around in the brush, and we kept looking. And the thing was, it was a full moon. It was bright. You could see the desert. And we couldn't see anything out there. We're like, what's going on, man? Like, this is kind of weird. And all of us kind of panicked at the same time. And there was about 7 of us, and we were in our friend's car. And at the same time, all of us panicked, and we all jumped into the car. My friend jumped in, he turned it on, and we started driving, like hauling ass out of the area that we were in. As we're driving out, we start hearing what seemed like something chasing us. Like, if we looked outside, it was like movement. It seemed like there was movement, like you could hear, other than us driving through the desert. And we had this like real panicky feeling. And we kept looking out the window, and there's nothing there. And we kept hearing like dogs barking, and there was nothing there. And it seemed like forever. And like I said, the highway was maybe like 5 minutes away. And we were driving as fast as we possibly could, and it seemed like forever. And finally, like when we broke into the road, everything kind of came back, like real life, if you want to call it that. Like you could hear the sound of other cars. You could hear the sound of like the night, the city around us, whatever. And we went to my friend's house who lived nearby. We got out of the car, and we're standing around just looking at each other like, what the hell just happened? And this fury kind of like built up inside of all of us. We're pissed off. We're like, no, this is not going to work. This is not going to stand. So us being stupid, once again, all decided to pile back into the car and drive back out there to see what the hell it was. So we went out there, and mind you, it was maybe like at the latest, it was maybe 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. We went out there, and my friend, considering himself like a shaman or whatever you want to call it, decided to draw a protective circle around the car with us like standing outside the car. We were looking around. He's like, you know what? Everybody get near the car. He drew with his foot, he drew a protective circle around the car, and we're just standing there waiting to see if anything would happen. All of a sudden, the cops show up out of nowhere. And these were not cops like state troopers or anything like that, or sheriffs. These were actually El Paso PD. And El Paso PD at that point in time would not go out there. Like it was kind of far from their substation or whatever in that area. I remember because I remember where the substation was. And they wouldn't go out there. That's why we felt very comfortable going out there and just doing whatever and hanging out.
Mm.
But sure enough, they drive up and they park in front of us, like, and they have their brights on us. And they get out of the car and we're just standing around, a bunch of 20-year-old kids. We're just looking around at each other. And the cops come up to us and they ask us, like, what are you guys doing out here? Oh, we're just hanging out, sir. We had like bottles of like root beer and stuff. We're like, oh, we're drinking root beer. We're trying to be funny, whatever, because we didn't know we had done something wrong since we were out there. And the cops were like, is that all you guys are doing out here? We're like, yeah. And they walked around the vehicle. They walked around the car, like checking it out, right? And if you look down, like you could see the circle. Like it was plain as day. Like my friend had dug his foot into the ground to make it obvious around the car. And it was interesting because we all noticed that the cops didn't cross the circle. They didn't cross the line. And we're like, what? And the cops came back around. They looked at each other. They looked at us. And they're like, all right, you guys, be careful. Don't do anything stupid. And they got back in their car and they drove off. And we're like, what? Like, usually cops tell you to get out of there, especially if you're not, somewhere you're not supposed to be, or if it's private property or something. We didn't know what it was. The cops told us that. They got in their car and they drove away. And we're just standing there like, what the hell just happened? And me being me, I was like, you know what? Forget this, man. Let's go see what we find. Let's go. So I stepped out of the circle. Everyone followed me. And we started walking out into the desert, looking for something that we didn't even know what it looked like. We didn't know what we were looking for. We just knew we had to find whatever it was that was making that noise. That scared us off the first time. So sure enough, we start walking out there and we start looking on the ground and we find like a dog print. And then we find another one. And we start following them and they start like, it's like walking, like the dog was walking. And it was plain as day and you could see it with the moonlight. And the dog's walking, whatever. The paw prints are leading us away from the car and we're following them, all of us. And when we started studying like all the spiritualism and everything, one of the main things that we learned was if we ever experience anything, you're not supposed to run away from it because it draws their attention. Kind of like The Last Unicorn. I don't know if you remember that cartoon or not, that animation. There's a scene in it where it's a magician and there's a harpy and there's a unicorn and the harpy's like attacking someone and killing them. And the unicorn turns to run and the magician stops her and tells her, no, don't run from anything immortal because it'll sense you and it'll know where you're at. So always walk away. And that's something that played off of what we had learned, like in the spiritualism and the spiritual road we had taken. Like, don't run from something that you don't understand. Just turn around and walk away because you'll draw its attention. So we're out there walking around, following the tracks, and they start getting further and further away from each other. Like this thing is running, and then all of a sudden, honestly, it seemed to me, it looked like the dog or whatever it was that decided to stand up and start walking on two legs because of how far apart the tracks were. It was weird. And at the end of following the tracks, there was this huge like bush made out of tumbleweeds. And it was really dark, and it looked really, really dark. And as we were approaching it and we're looking at the tracks, one of the tracks stepped into the ground, and it looked to me like it was half dog print and half footprint, like a human footprint. And it led directly to this bush that was so darker than the rest of the surroundings. And mind you, the moonlight was shining on everything. And we all stopped and looked at this thing, at this bush, and we're like, what's in there? Is it a den? Is it something else? What are we looking at? And all of a sudden we hear like a rattlesnake, the rattle of a rattlesnake. Mm-hmm. And everyone panicked, man. Everybody panicked, turned around and started running. They started hauling ass to the car. And I'm all yelling like, no, don't run. We're not supposed to run. Didn't we learn anything? We're supposed to walk away. And there I am turning around, walking away. And these guys are like leaving me behind. And I hear them like getting to the car and jumping in the car. And I'm like, oh, crap. So I start hauling ass, like running after them. I jump into the car and the same thing happens. He turns on the car. We start driving out of the area. and we actually feel something hit the car, like on the side of the car, as we're driving out of the area, and we hear the dogs barking again, like we were being chased again. And sure enough, same as before, we break through onto the main road, and everything comes back to reality. Like we don't hear any weird sounds, we hear everything around us. We go back to my friend's house, we get out, and we're like panicking. We're like, what did we do? You know, we shouldn't have done that, blah blah blah, whatever. So that was on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Monday morning, I go back to EPCC. I go back to community college, and I'm walking into school, and I see this guy. And I see him, and he's standing on the side. And you know, once again, being the prick that I was, I start going up to him to tell him something. And he turns and he looks at me, and he says, "So, did you like what I sent you?" And I like panicked, dude. Like I freaked out, and I just turned around and walked away. Like, what the hell? What the hell just happened? And I felt like, I don't know how to describe it, but I felt violated, I guess you could say, like something was messing with my head or something like that. And I go to find out later on down the road that this guy was into stuff also, that he was also on some sort of spiritual path, but he was studying with brujos, which are witches, and learning like black magic from these people, the black arts or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, after that, I had a healthy respect for him, and I would stay away from him and stuff, man.
Yeah, man, that is some pretty crazy stuff, and that's why, you know, sometimes they tell you just you don't mess with people, especially if you don't know them, because you don't know their background, you don't know their family history and what traditions they might be learning and stuff. Whether or not you believe it or not, they do, and you know, that's a great example of, you know, sometimes magic is still alive, and black magic, white magic, good magic, whatever. If there's one side of it, there must be another side. So it's just pretty creepy. And he brings up this whole, like, what the heck did he even send you? It sounds like a dog man type thing, spiritual stuff, and then witches. I mean, I've heard people say, you know, that there's families that pass down these traditions in secret, and you know, it's very closed circle. And if you piss these people off, you know, sometimes they'll come to you. I've heard about them coming into your dreams and stuff, and being able to do stuff and move stuff around your house by coming into your dreams and stuff. Some weird stuff. It just makes you wonder, you know. And again, all these old world religions and cultures, you know, and just cultural stuff, they talk about this certain magics and spiritual stuff, and witches or shamans, you know, being good or bad, can send stuff, healing spirits, or all sorts of crazy stuff, man. It just, I don't know what to think about it, man. I just think I think it's all real. It's just on a super grand scale that we just don't understand.
And I agree with you on that. Like you said earlier, you know, everyone has like their religion. Everybody has their own belief system, and it's all based off of something. And the keyword being belief, right? Like if you believe in something, then that's all the power that you need in the world, because you'll make it so. And I think that plays off of a lot of stuff that I've experienced, and a lot of stuff that I write about as well. Because I've seen this stuff. I've seen it, and I remember I was on we were streaming one night, and we had brought in a friend of ours, and he was telling me, like, you're so free with this information, and you talk about it like it's whatever. Like, don't you feel like some people might judge you and say that you're crazy or something like that? And I'm like, why would I think that if I've seen it? You know what I mean?
Right.
My belief is there in what I've experienced. So I don't consider myself crazy. I'm just telling you what I saw. If you believe it, then it's up to you. But I know what I believe, and I know what I've seen. And I never really thought about it that way, as far as you know, sharing these stories, this information that I have, and what people would actually think about me down the road. So
Yeah, who cares, man? Life's too short to be worrying about that. And
exactly.
our experiences are you know, are well beyond anyone's, you know, what care about what other people say about it, because, you know, it's like, if you guys experienced half the stuff, you guys would have totally different outlook and
Mm-hmm.
maybe even be petrified of certain stuff. Those experiences, some people get totally wigged out. They won't ever return, get out of that state, and don't mess with people anymore. It's man, that's some crazy stuff. What
Yeah.
that guy you were messing with, was he Latino and stuff too, or was he
He was Native also.
Native American, or was he
He
more
was
like
half
from like
Mexican and half, I believe, Sirikawa.
okay?
So yeah, and I didn't find that out till later also because a mutual friend of ours, like he knew us both and he wanted us to like be able to be civil with each other in the same room because he was friends with both of us, and he was also Native and half Sirikawa, and that's how they knew each other. And I'm like, oh shit, well that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, crazy stuff. All right, we got a couple minutes left. I got to get out early. My girls gonna be home. I gotta cook her dinner and stuff. But any last thoughts? Any last things you want to plug? Any last encounters maybe you want to tell? I mean, what a fantastic show, man! It's just jam packed full of stuff, and I can't wait to have you back on and stuff, and get you on maybe for a round table and get your opinion on different things too. That'd be pretty sweet.
That would be awesome. I'd love to do that. Yeah, I mean, whenever you want to do it again, I'm up for it. Especially the roundtable, that would sound really cool. The only thing we're doing is just plugging the book. Like I said, we're launching on September 16th. A lot of the stuff that's in there is based off of real events. I want to call them that. Like the Battle of Nightmare Hall, which has happened in Dulce, New Mexico. Also, like all the sightings of the Goat Man in Denton, Texas, at the Goat Man Bridge. What else? The Black Eyed Kids in Abilene, Texas. A bunch of stuff that is local to me in a way. I've tried to put that in the book, and also to give it a little bit of background because these things, apparently did happen, and people have witnessed them. And just so you know, this is the book. It's called The Cryptidnals, right there. And if you guys are interested, like I said, the link is in the chat or the link is in the description. I think, I'm not sure, and you can sign up for
in the description.
There you
after.
go. Mm-hmm. And you can sign up for the mailing list when this goes live. It's going to go live on Kickstarter on September 16th, and also a second chance campaign with this cover on Indiegogo. It's going to be this cover, right? I'm looking at the crew. So this cover will be on Indiegogo. The glow in the dark cover that I had been talking about earlier is going to be exclusive for Kickstarter. So just go check it out if you get a chance, and you won't be disappointed. Like I said, the story so far, everyone loves it. They're comparing it sort of to like like a horror X-Men, but with like a lot of reality, or a lot of real places that have experienced cryptid lore and paranormal. There's a little bit of everything in there. I touch on Lovecraft. I touch on Poe. The art is very Junji Ito-ish, very Gustave Doré type artwork. And of course, nothing but cryptids because I love cryptids so much. And La Llorona is what started it all. And a lot of the Latino community, a lot of the Latinx community has really latched onto the book because for the first time ever that I know of, and what everyone else seems to agree with me, La Llorona, which is usually this evil character, I'm representing her as a superhero, or as close as an anti-hero as you can get, being who she is. And that's never been done before. And people are really, really intrigued by that. And also the man dog. And I think I talked about the man dog last time I was here, talking about the legend in San Elizario about the man dog. So a lot of people have been drawn to that character as well. So please check us out. Follow us on 6x6 Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And I also have a TikTok. It's the Cryptidnals on TikTok. It's a Cryptid Talk. And I try to post as regularly as possible on that as well. But I'm sure if you follow the links, like on 6x6, you'll be able to find all that other stuff as well.
Yeah, and you got the Cryptidnals Facebook group too that people can join.
Yes,
And
you can join the Cryptidnals Facebook group. We post all sorts of paranormal and cryptid stuff on there too. And I'm glad that you're on there also, man, that you're active on there too. Checking
yeah,
out stuff.
everyone's check them out. You know, you guys did great work, and I think we're going to see a lot of great work for the future from you guys because you guys are very talented. You know, very good stuff, and can't wait to have you on again and stuff. And so I'm not going to be doing a show this Saturday night. I'm going to be out in the field. Be out in the field tomorrow and one air, and then we're going to go out up north with the crew, hitting up a very active spot and hopefully get some great evidence. Maybe usually we get pretty lucky in this place, so hopefully we get some good stuff and bring it to you guys next week, hopefully with the crew. And so with that, Ray, thank you again for coming on. Excellent show, and everyone have a good night, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much, Blake.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate everything you guys spend your time on and everything. So we'll see you guys next week.